Council meeting's now in session. The Honorable Robert Winkler will give the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Let us pray. Lord, thank you for this beautiful day, for beautiful weather. Thank you for the opportunity to get together and do your business. We ask for wisdom, Lord, as we meet up here tonight and vote on all these things coming before us and work on budgets and all the many myriads of things of trying to help run the county government, Lord. Just ask you to give each of us vision. Remember to always keep what's best in our hearts and minds. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is oath of office. When I call your name, if you'd come forward so Mr. Kendry can swear you in. Daniel Holmes, Leon Yard, Mark Van Sickle, Melanie Curse, Steve Crump, Curtis Sheik, Jason Weitzel.
It's an honor and privilege to administer the oath of office. York County is indebted to its citizens who serve on its boards and commissions that do not function as well as we do without your service. On behalf of York County, thank you. You need to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I am duly qualified according to the Constitution of this state to exercise the duties of the office to which I have been appointed, and that I will, to the best of my ability, discharge the duties thereof, and preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of this state and of the United States. So help me God.
Stranger, you doing all right?
Good, how are you?
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate your service. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate you helping us out.
How are you doing? It's been a while.
Appreciate your service. Yes, sir.
Growing up, one's graduating.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your service. Yes,
Thank you for
sir.
serving.
Is that what Rolling Hills Nursery? I
Sure.
recognize the name in the voice.
Serving good, how about you?
I have the honor to present a resolution. Can I get you to read that?
You want me to read this?
Yeah, just if you could. This is to Deputies Davis and Yates. And I'm going to get you to come forward and head that way while I have Councilman Johnson read the...
I'll give it to you, I'm gonna read it off the computer,
Oh, okay. That'll work.
so I can blow it up even more.
Whereas York County Council deems it appropriate to publicly recognize Deputy Chad Davis and Deputy Josh Yates, who go above and beyond the ordinary course of duty to protect and save lives. And whereas on September 20, 2015, Deputy Chad Davis and Deputy Josh Yates received a call that a woman, 7 months pregnant, was attempting to commit suicide by hanging herself behind her home. And whereas upon Deputy Davis's arrival, he could see the woman at the bottom of the step of an 8-foot ladder with a chain around her neck, steadily climbing to the top. And whereas Deputy Davis did the only thing he knew to do, he grabbed the woman and the ladder and held her up until Deputy Yates could arrive. And whereas Deputy Josh Yates arrived and saw his partner and friend holding the pregnant woman, swaying under the limb with a chain around her neck. And whereas Deputy Yates quickly grabbed one side of the woman and Deputy Davis held the other until additional help could arrive to assist in bringing the pregnant woman safely to the ground. And whereas through these courageous acts, these two heroic individuals demonstrated their character and compassion for the welfare of others. personifying the collective concern of ordinary citizens across the community of York County who voluntarily responded without the thought of danger or reward when others are in need of help. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the York County Council does hereby recognize and honor Deputy Chad Davis and Deputy Josh Yates on their heroic actions in rescuing 2 lives from an untimely death. Thank you.
This is an honor just to present this to the people that protect us each and every day. This is just kind of an average day in their life. But I appreciate the service. Thank you, Deputy Davis, and also Deputy Yates. Greatly appreciate the protection. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
If y'all want to say anything. And you might want to turn to the.
This was a milestone for us as far as one of those things you don't do every day. 17 years I've been policing. I've been on the road all of it. And first time I've came across a situation where I had a pregnant lady trying to do something like that. The glory for this does not go to me, it goes to God, because God gave me the strength to hold that lady for 5 minutes. It gave Deputy Yates the strength to hold that lady for an additional 5 minutes. 10 minutes we held her in the air. And, you know, a bad situation was averted. And that's how we do our job every day. We're out here. Situations like that don't come along very often. We had the opportunity to be there, make a difference that day. And as long as I police, it will hang with me as one of the bright moments of my career. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Deputy Davis said it all. You know, this being the week of National Law Enforcement Week, you know, there are officers that pay the ultimate sacrifice, and this is just something, you know, that we do. Mine's gonna be short and sweet. Thank you, and we really appreciate it.
And I just want to say, I didn't want to talk over the clapping, but I'm honored to be in your presence, and I appreciate everything you do in protecting every citizen in this county, and we're fortunate to have both of you.
Thank you for allowing
Thank
me
you,
to
sir.
do so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next order of business is a proclamation in memory of Clarence Graham. I'm going to let the Honorable Councilman Roddy take the lead on this.
Is there someone from Mr. Graham's family in attendance? They were supposed to be scheduled to be here tonight.
Mr. Roddy, excuse me. Would you kindly move to adopt the resolution that was just presented to the,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Can we go, are you talking about the resolution on the 2 deputies? Can we have a motion of acceptance for that resolution?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Thank you.
Well, I see there's no one in attendance, but I will just go ahead and, because we've been trying to get this on the agenda and trying to work something with the schedule with the family, and apparently no one's here this evening to receive it. But we did want to recognize Mr. Clarence Graham and his contributions to York County with the Friendship 9. And Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I can still read it into the record.
Absolutely. Why don't we go ahead and give a motion first and a second, and then we'll go ahead and have the,
Okay.
on the record.
I'd like to make a motion that we receive this proclamation from Mr. Clarence Graham.
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Roddy, if you'd read it into the record.
For the record, it says, whereas York County celebrates the life and public service of Mr. Clarence Graham, who passed away on March 25th, 2016, and whereas Mr. Clarence Graham grew up in the Board Hill community in Rock Hill, South Carolina, graduated from Emmy Scott High School in 1959, and was the first recipient of a bachelor's degree from Friendship College in 1979, and previously being awarded an honorary doctorate of humanitarian in 1978. And whereas Mr. Graham entered the United States Air Force in 1962 and served his country in Vietnam conflict. And whereas Mr. Graham retired as a social worker after 21 years with the state of South Carolina, having served as the Director of Manpower for Carolina Community Action. And whereas Mr. Graham was a member of the Friendship 9, a group of African-American men, the majority of whom attended Rock Hills Friendship Junior College, who was arrested in 1961 after staging a peaceful sit-in protest at the segregated McCory's lunch counter in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And whereas after the sit-in, Mr. Graham was convicted of trespassing and a breach of peace and was sentenced to 30 days in jail with hard labor or pay a $100 fine. And whereas Mr. Graham chose the 30-day sentence of hard labor at the York County Prison Farm, an action which marks the first in the civil rights movement through the Jail No Bail protest strategy. And whereas in 2015, the Honorable Judge C. Hayes III overturned the conviction of the 9. And whereas throughout the years, Mr. Graham served the community by coordinating and providing educational talks to civic and school groups about the Friendship 9, nonviolent protests, and civil rights. And whereas Clarence Graham is remembered as an impeccable leader and mentor, a voice for the people, and a man of great influencing the civil rights movement, and whose legacy of selfless commitment to others will continue to positively impact the citizens of York County. And now be there it proclaimed that the York County Council expressed its sincere condolences to the Graham family and its deep appreciation to the many beneficial contributions Mr. Clarence Graham provided to the citizens of York County, adopted the 16th day of May 2016.
Thank you, Mr. Roddy. Yes, sir.
Oh, I was just going to wrap up and say I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Graham back in 2008. Known him since then and had numerous of conversations. I actually served on the foundation board when we got together to form a foundation that actually put a book out commemorating the Friendship 9 and going through that whole process. It was he actually personally called me up to ask me to serve, so I was delighted that he even thought enough of me to ask to be on that committee. But he will certainly be missed, and like the proclamation said, he is a man of many contributions to this community and this society as a whole, not just here in Rock Hill, York County, but across America with some of the things that they were able to start up that provoked some of the change that we see today. So just want to take this opportunity to recognize him for that, and I will get a framed portion of the proclamation to his family to make sure that they have it forever and a day. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other comments? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Roddy, for bringing that to the council to give us that opportunity. Next item is appearances. First one is C.J. Ramsey to address the water contamination issue in Travis Acres.
I want to thank the council again for letting me speak pertaining to this situation. Last time my time was restricted here. But my name is C.J. Ramsey, own property at 709 Rock Castle, which my daughter, my son, and 3 grandchildren reside. I guess the first thing I want to make a clear understanding is I was informed by a council member that I've consulted that I've got an attorney. I do not have an attorney. I have talked to one. I have not signed any agreement with anything with any attorney. I was trying to get something resolved with this situation without that process. So I just want y'all to know that I do not have an attorney, so we can talk, okay? Robert, I don't have an attorney, okay? But I guess, one thing I do want to say is I want to thank Tim Walling with the county. He's been very, very informative about putting the filtration system in at my daughter's house. He texts me every time something's to be done or something got put off, like now the filter's supposed to be put in tomorrow, is put off for another 10 days. He does a very good job with that. I just wish in some way, shape, or form that the county really, I guess, cared enough to keep me updated about what's going on. I mean, I talk with Robert some when I give him a call, but you would think with this situation, knowing that this chemical that has been entering my family's body for 7 years, we know that it can affect your liver and your kidneys. And I guess I did ask Mr. Walling one question: has any other wells been contaminated? And his answer was, he has been hushed. He cannot talk about it. So my question to the council, other than the one home that you're still waiting on the test results, is there any other homes contaminated with this chemical? Does anybody know?
We just listen to you. We don't.
Okay, but you can't answer a question, or?
Certainly, you can talk to staff and
Okay.
get a direct, after not,
Wells been contaminated?
yeah, I mean, after the meet.
After.
Yeah, you can
Okay.
sit there and
Well, I was
get your
just-
questions answered.
I was just curious. And I guess the other thing, and I did mention this last month, and I really hate to hash over this again, but knowing this contamination is in that well, I'm just surprised that, and Robert, you're my representative, that no one has, and my daughter mentioned this last month, no one from the county at all has offered to have my family tested to see if this chemical's in their body. I guess that dumbfounds me. If the landfill caused this contamination, and we're all aware of it, and even aware of it a year before we even knew anything about it, it seemed like someone would be interested in finding out, well, Mr. Ramsey, is your son, your daughter, and your 3 grandkids, have they been affected so far with this? And it is discouraging to know that no one has even reached out to offer any type of consideration of this being done. And I know you guys and ladies, you do this as a public service because your pay is minimum, and I do appreciate that. But again, this is a serious situation that weighs on my daughter's mind each and every day, and my son's mind. And my son is an employee of the county. He puts his life on the line every day as a detective for York County. So, and I guess, I do want to thank the county for putting in a filter system. They did have to bring a little storage building and put in the backyard, which is honestly kind of an eyesore. They had to dig up her backyard to put a power line in, and eventually I would say the filter is going to be put in. But I just don't understand the whole process of why it had to go that route. I stop and think, what would happen to me or anyone out here if we'd done anything to contaminate one part of York County's property? We'd be facing fines, probably civil litigation. And I'm just asking the council to really give more consideration to this issue, because I really hear nothing from no one unless I make the contact. I was told, I think, Mr. Winkler, well, you need to file with the insurance company, with the insurance reserve. Me being an insurance agent of 28 years, I understand insurance. I did so. I filed. I know I can't ask the question if y'all heard from the insurance reserve, but me as a claimant, after 4 weeks, I've heard nothing. Now, if my client had a claim and the companies I represent didn't contact them for 4 weeks, would that not be bad? But I've heard nothing at all from, and Robert, you're my representative, and honestly, you're the one I'm looking to stay in touch with me and to keep me updated. And I hate that I have to make that initiation for us to even talk. I really do. So would someone in your executive committees, whatever, please find out if and when I'll hear from the insurance reserve. Now, I was told that since I have contacted the insurance reserve, that there's not much the council can do. Well, I was only done what I was instructed, and I contacted them. So if someone could please contact the insurance reserve, it would be very helpful. And I'm just about done here. Since this took place, as I mentioned last time, before this contamination took place, my daughter had her home, new siding put on it, a new roof put on it, and was in the process of having inside painted to sell his home before this even come up. Believe me, I wish this never come up. Never. I know you folks wish it never come up also. I put the home up for sale. I've had 11 phone calls about the home. I've showed the home 6 times. 3 of the 6 times the people was interested in the home. Now understand, when I showed this home, okay, I did not and would not mention the water until these people showed interest in the home. I did not want the water to be an issue from the very first of the conversation. 3 of these people, very interested in the home. But once I mentioned the water, even with the filter system, they was no longer interested in it. And I know this through, I'm not gonna say where I've heard it from, but, you know, the county's not interested in buying this home. You know, my daughter makes that payment. That home value is gone. No one's gonna buy that double wide now, even at a reduced price. None of you would buy it, knowing the water has to be filtered. So I really hope me up here talking really sinks in a little bit, because, you know, my next question is, yeah, you can't answer the question if other homes are affected, but if the other homes are not affected, why don't we because the water with the well is going to give a mindset of bad water. Put another well in. Maybe it won't be contaminated. And then I don't have to disclose that if the water is not contaminated. But as it is now, my daughter is stuck in a situation that we actually have had nothing to do with. And I want the council to really consider this. You know, I've tried, and I've told Robert, I've tried to handle this without a lot of public notice, without getting have I not told you this, Robert, without getting litigation involved. Yes, attorneys contact my daughter quite often about this situation, but that's not the route I want to go. I would like the county to really consider what could be done as far as the devaluation of this home because of this contamination, because it's absolutely nothing that we done to cause this. It's nothing y'all could have done to prevent it. I understand that, because a liner was not put in back then, liners was not required in the landfill. But when you have a chemical that is proven to cause liver and kidney cancer, it may not happen today, or next year it could happen down the road. And that's what's on her mind each and every day. So I hope the council could do something. You know, I understand y'all don't want to buy the home because it sets a precedence. Well, you know, honestly, now at this point, we don't want it neither, nor does anybody else. So I just do hope, and as you said in your prayer, Robert, that you would search your hearts and do what's not best so much for the land values is my issue, but what's best for my daughter, my son, and my 3 grandkids. I'll greatly appreciate that. Okay?
Thanks, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Next person is Ron's going to talk about the Lake Wiley Sportsplex.
Thank you for providing me the opportunity to come up here and speak again. All I want to do is give you an update since we've been
I
here.
remember the name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ron Domrad, 3426 Fallerbrook Forest, York. It's been a while since we've been here, and I think the last time we got together, I gave you an update on the petition. The petition was voted to proceed. We worked on the petition. I can't remember the exact dates, but the quick update is to wrap up I'd like to just come up and give you an update on where we are, and we'll be back in about a month on the June 20th agenda to give you a full proposal on how we're going to move forward with the special tax district and the progress on how the park will be built and managed. The petition, the signatures were validated, I should say internally validated. The petition was submitted a week ago Friday. We're waiting on Wanda Hemphill and the election office to validate everything. The ordinance was drafted. I believe a copy of the ordinance was exchanged with the county attorney and with our attorney, Charles Bradford. The task district and the area proposed, I'll show on the next slide, has been decided, and that was decided before the petition was distributed for collection of signatures. The ownership, the proposal based on the ordinance, the way it was written, the tax laws in section 4930 from 1976 indicates that a board should be appointed by our representative on county council to operate the any let's say, a recreation board inside the tax district. So what we'll be doing is presenting to our district representative, Bruce Henderson, nominees for that board, and that will describe how the board will operate. The best way for the board and the county to be covered from a liability perspective was if the county maintains ownership. We'll describe that when we come back with our proposal, and it's in the ordinance. On the liability, the best way, the most affordable way to limit liability and to contain that would be if the county owns the property, and if the board operates the property under the South Carolina Insurance Reserve, and there's, according to the research done on those laws, there's a $300K liability cap on any incidents for general liability. We'll describe more about the 5-person governance board, but that was taken out of the code. I don't have details on that tonight. But let me move on just to keep it brief, and I'll ask questions at the end. The petition was successful. It wasn't incredibly difficult to gather 2,900 signatures. The asterisk indicates that some of those signatures, as you can see, were outside of the southern boundaries of the proposed tax district. The tax district encompasses all of the primary voting precincts of District 2, with the exception of a portion of New Home and a portion of Allison Creek. The reason why I asterisk the 29 signatures is because approximately 350 signatures were collected outside of the Clover School District, which represents a good southern boundary. The western boundary is by those precincts and basically on the Parent Road boundary. The calculations done the day when we had turned in the petition was that approximately, based on the registered voters in these precincts, the required signatures was 2,400. We have collected 29 validated, from us, validated signatures. Wanda will determine from her proofing and validation how that goes. Even with the 350 reduction of outside and signatures collected in New Home and Allison Creek, we still got about 240 extra signatures. We've gone through these numbers before on the hospitality tax as the base. The proposal is to tax the people of this area $7 million for a capital build of the park, approximately $400,000 in operating expenses for the first couple of years. We will adjust that tax. I'm not saying we, the board that governs this will adjust that tax year on year and present a budget, an operating budget to county council for approval year on year. And then the mill will be adjusted, or the taxable rate will be adjusted as we go. Any additional funds collected would be set aside for future Lake Wiley Park and Rec if any other properties become available. We don't want to increase the tax on anybody else for a second time. And I did mention earlier that these boundaries represent the Clover School District. The north boundary is the state line. The west boundary is the western borders of those precincts and the Parham Road. The southern boundary is the Clover School District outline, and the east boundary is the lake or the state line into North Carolina. The tax impact from the petition, it was communicated to signatures or registered voters at approximately $16,000 per year on an owner-occupied property valued at $100,000. A commercial property, the tax would be about $24,000 a year for the same amount. You've seen the slide before. The base is $2.45 million of hospitality tax. The capital investment raised, the Lake Wiley area residents will be taxed upon would be $7 million. The estimated operating would be $400K from our earliest projections. What I'll come to you is on the 20th of June with a full proposal. Some of the open items we're finishing up is the tax collection, the financial logistics about how the tax will be collected, how the finance will be operated, how the budgets will be prepared and presented for approval, and how the board will operate with the tax office and the finance area. The final version of the ordinance will be decided on and presented. Liability, we're going to have to cover. I think it will be proposed that the park should cover the cost difference of liability if the county's going to. If the proposal is that the park be managed under the liability policy for the county, there would be, if there's any difference in that cost, I think they should go into the operation cost of the park. We will build bylaws along with rules and regulations on how the park operates, and then we have to figure out if the board is going to hire 1 to 2 to 3 employees that would actually be full-time employees or part-time employees that managed by the board, would manage the park, have to iron out how those people would be employed. Obviously, the immediate objective on the June 20th presentation is to present to you to put it on the ballot for the residents of Lake Wylie to vote on it in November. I would ask you at this time, or you can take it offline, I'll check each and every one of you or through Karen, if you have any questions, concerns, or suggestions.
Well, I will allow, since this is a lot of money and responsibility, if any council member has a exacting question, no propaganda speeches or anything, but if there's any concerns, questions that any council member has. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next person's Ben Johnson. And Ben's going to talk about negatives to our economy concerning the housing freeze and overlay district discussions.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have to be a little more positive. I'm Ben Johnson. I'm at 306 College Avenue, Rock Hill. As you know, I represent some businesses, and I've also had the privilege of being on your comprehensive planning advisory committee. But I'm not here tonight for any particular client, and I certainly don't speak for the committee. I thought it useful to just give a big picture summary, at least from my point of view, for your benefit and also the public. Really, first of all, I want to underscore for the council and the public the significant land use measures that you all have undertaken in the last year or so. I want to point out what's in the hopper. And I want to emphasize the real need that business and investors have for predictability and lack of surprises. In the past year or so, you all have adopted some significant measures. I'll go back to 2014. You adopted a conditional zoning ordinance. It allows the council to add conditions, development conditions, upon any decision to rezone a piece of property. And the council has been active, as far as I can tell, in imposing conditions in rezoning cases. In December 2015, and I'm skipping over some, but in December 2015, the council significantly reduced the housing density that's allowed in RC1 and RC2, and also in RD1 and RD2, and it removed single-family residential altogether as a permitted use in BD3. I don't have exact numbers for you, but these changes eliminated many potential housing units that were previously allowed as a matter of right in these districts. As a result of these changes, most new projects are going to need to come before you for seeking rezoning. So even if the council should see fit to allow a rezone, you're going to have available to you your conditional zoning ordinance to impose additional conditions, and you'll also be able to use the new land use plan that you're taking up later tonight as part of the future land use plan that's in the Comp Committee's report. Some other important things are already in the works. One is a Lake Wylie watershed overlay district that's being developed, as I understand it, according to a prior vote you all took. This is going to be, as I understand it, similar to some strict watershed ordinances, including one that's already in effect in Charlotte-Mecklenburg. This will have a significant impact, as you can imagine, on land use around Lake Wylie and also the tributaries that lead to it. Another thing that's significant in this field is the traffic impact study ordinance. The code, your code has always had a TIA requirement in it, but as I understand it, at your instruction, staff is planning significant changes and additional requirements as part of your traffic impact study requirement in the code. And as you know, these requirements could require adoption of recommended traffic improvements as a condition to any building permit or site plan approval that's issued. The fifth thing, and this before you tonight, I believe on first reading, is the comp plan. It's a result of 18 months of study. It was a broad, diverse citizens group, about as diverse as you can imagine. from a cross-section of the county. It included local activists, professionals, development professionals, owners. There were a number of public workshops, a number of revisions to the ordinance. Critical components of the comp plan include the future land use map that you'll be voting on, and also a proposed urban services boundary that you'll be voting on. And that will guide the location and types of development that will be allowed in the future. Once you adopt the land use plan and the comp plan, any rezoning would have to be judged based on its consistency with the future land use plan. There are many others that you've, and I know you know this, there are many others that you've adopted. There are others on the agenda tonight, and they're significant. They're significant alone, and from where I stand advising businesses, they're significant when they all fit together. As you might have predicted, there was a rush to the door when some of these measures were announced, and there are a lot of permits outstanding, but I believe over time, this is going to have great impact on the amount of development in the county, and it will achieve the result that you have intended. I realize that other land use measures are before the council, and additional ones may follow. They kind of pop up sometimes like storms from where I sit. As to any moratorium, as the council knows, a moratorium cannot be an end in itself. Also, there was a proposal adopted on first reading by title only on May 2 that would create quotas on the number of building permits in an area and effectively remove some forms of affordable housing from the entire area. Such an ordinance, I believe respectfully, would interfere with vested property rights. It would amount to exclusionary zoning that's not permitted by the Home Rule Act, and frankly, it invites a challenge under the Fair Housing Act. I want to end on a more positive note. The comp plan that's before you tonight promotes a number of new concepts, especially in more rural areas of the county. It creates employment centers throughout the county where it envisions mixed use and higher density so that people won't have to get in their car every time they want to go somewhere. The idea is to avoid sprawl, so having people live close to where they work and where they shop. The comp plan also recognizes that York County should have a mix of housing products so that there's worker housing for the businesses we're trying to recruit here. And then finally, let me talk about growth. Balanced growth has always been an objective of this council. We can't lose the sight of the fact that we need balanced growth. We need to create good jobs here in York County and a diversified tax base. On our economic development website, we say York County is open for business, and we claim it's business friendly, and it is. Investors, as you might imagine, look for a stable environment in which to invest their funds. We're competing with a lot of other places. And even though the council does not intend this, and I'm sure the reporters don't intend this, the headlines essentially say York County is no longer as friendly to business as it was, and this message gets repeated throughout the Carolinas. I know this is not the council's intention, but perception can become reality. With so many potential places to invest, and with the reality that the business cycle is inevitably going to turn down, there is risk that the businesses will avoid investing in York County if we lack predictability. Thank you for giving me the time to speak to you tonight.
Thank you, sir. Well, let's see, the next order of business is the public forum session. Remember with this, now you only have 2 minutes to speak, and then I have to cut you off, okay? So the first person is Billy Hagner.
Okay, my name's Billy Hagner. I live at 1901 Voyager Road in York. The reason I'm here tonight is, again, to just talk about the growth in the Lake Wiley area. I'm only concerned personally with the Lake Wiley area. I'm not talking about the Fort Mill area. I'm sorry about the, I guess, the quality of this drawing here, but it was given to me by the planning department, but this, I need to get the electronic version. This is not. But really what I'm showing, this is showing the planned developments and the developments that's under construction in the Lake Wiley area. The Buster Boy Bridge is right up in here. Right down here is Little Allison. The rest of all that, as you can see, is pretty well, is already developed. So I guess what I'm saying, if we do put a, change our, where we do put some type of moratorium, a slowdown on building, it's really not going to affect a whole lot for several years. I think that we can definitely, we can stand a slowdown to try to see, to make some changes so that we can have a bit more controlled growth. The other thing that happened that Ben was talking about back in December was that we took apartments, residential housing out of RC1, RC2, and RD2, and put it all in, now it's in RD2 and BD2, I think. And that's really about the majority of the property that's left around the lake is RD2 and BD2. So what I'm saying is we've really kind of made the problem worse in these areas. And I think we need to take a hard look at it while we still got some property left. Once it's all filled up, that's it. The only other way to change it is to tear what's down there and just start going up. So there's not a whole lot of property there. We have time to slow down and take a good look at what's going on, and let's put some type of ordinance in place that will have good controlled growth. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Billy. Next person is Wendy. How do you pronounce your last name? Duda? I'm sorry. I always get intimidated by that four-letter last name.
Wendy Duda, 11 Park Drive in York. Council members and staff, I am the Executive Director of York County Council on Aging, and I am here tonight just to say thank you for your continued support of the Council on Aging. We appreciate that you provide the match that brings us $12 for every dollar that you provide for us in services for seniors in York County, and we just want to say thank you so much. Have any questions?
No, we're just
Thank
listening.
you.
Thank you, Wendy. First order of business now is public hearings. Consider second reading and public hearing on case number 1527 to rezone from RC1 to BD3 at 3016 Eastview Road in the Rock Hill community.
Move to approve.
Let's have a public hearing first.
Oh, well, let me slow down.
Yeah, slow down.
So anybody here that is against? Anybody here in support of?
Have one on the side.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Council. I'm Mike Gettings. I live at 460 Harvest Moon Lane in Rock Hill. I'm the owner of Panther Heating and Cooling here in Rock Hill. We've been in business here for 22 years, serving the York County area. The reason for this request is to relocate our heating and air conditioning sales and service business to this property. Just wanted to point out real briefly the staff report that's in your notes. It does match the comprehensive plan. This area is considered a rural center in the future draft, in the draft of future land plan, and also this is a commercial node, and the zoning is consistent with that. We feel like it's a good fit for the community. I've met with most all the neighbors in the area. Didn't get to quite all of them, but we feel like it's a really good fit. We're a low-density type business, and just wanted to say we really would appreciate your consideration in approving this request, and I'll be glad to answer any questions as needed.
We just listened to you.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. Anybody else in favor? Have a motion to close?
Move to close.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Do we have a new motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item. Consider second reading and public hearing of case number 1605 to rezone from RC2 to BD3 at Ed Thompson Road in the Fort Mill community. Anybody here that wants to speak against? Anybody here wants to speak in favor? Do Do we have a motion to close?
Move to close.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Do we have a new motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Next item, hold a public hearing, consider amending and third reading of an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes and incentive agreement to provide for a fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes incentive and infrastructure credits to Sunbelt Rentals Incorporated, formerly identified as Project Sunnyside, the inclusion of certain property in York County, South Carolina, in a multi-county industrial park and other matters related thereto. Anybody here want to speak against? Anybody wants to speak in favor? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Be sure to give your name and address.
Kelly Ann Nagy with Sunbelt Rentals, Property Tax Manager, 2341 Deerfield Drive, Fort Mill.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm Scott Miller with Sunbelt Rentals, Director of Facilities and Real Estate. I live in TKK, 240 Shoreline Parkway.
Yes, sir.
We would just like to thank the council and thank Mr. Swenson and the economic team for the opportunity to stay in York County for another 11 years. We're excited about what the journey has for Sunbelt Rentals, and thank you very much for working with us.
She basically said it all. We do appreciate your consideration and investment in us, and we will be proud to be invest into York County.
Thank you for bringing the jobs to York County. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else want to speak in favor? Got a motion to close?
Move to close.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those no. Do we have a new motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those no. Next item. Council to consider second reading of an ordinance to suspend the acceptance of rezoning applications for RC1, RC2, RD1, RD2, PD, and BD3 districts within the unincorporated area of the Fort Mill Township, where the proposed rezoning includes residential uses, single-family and multifamily, to suspend the acceptance of site plans and preliminary plats for residential projects, single-family and multifamily, located within the unincorporated area of the Fort Mill Township, to end the suspension on December 31st, 2016, to provide for a public hearing and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to suspend the acceptance of rezoning applications for RC1, RC2, RD1, RD2, PD, and BD3 districts within the unincorporated area of the Fort Mill Township, where the proposed rezoning includes residential uses, single-family and multifamily, to end the suspension on December 31, 2016, to provide for a public hearing and to provide for other matters relating thereto. I am striking all language regarding the suspension of preliminary plats.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Mr. Johnson.
I have had numerous people come up to me and say, well, aren't we about to make this moot with the adoptance of a TIA and the adoptance of other matters? And you're absolutely correct, we may. But until I see a TIA, until I see an ordinance and we read it at this table and we start passing these things, it's not moot. And I'm asking that, this is obviously a second reading. We have not had a public hearing. I'm asking that we pass it. We have stripped out all the provisions that might be declared illegal, that our legal counsel has informed us of. I certainly believe a rezoning freeze is necessary under the assumption that we will not pass a TIA and a CIP. If we pass those things, I believe that will be sufficient. What I said was I wanted to freeze long enough for this council to pass ordinances that made sense and that helped us do what we want to do. Those are two things that actually lead us to that end result. I'm asking that we pass this, and I'm going to address one last thing because it will come up. Someone may ask, Why do you need a rezoning freeze? You could do that on your own. You could just say no to zonings. You are correct. I could say no to every rezoning in District 1. What I can't do is affect the other two council members' districts in the Fort Mill unincorporated areas. And unless we had an agreement that, and one, I could say no, and this council could still overrule me. We voted to overrule Mr. Henderson. We voted to overrule Mr. Winkler. We voted against each other. We no longer just rubber stamp these decisions. I think it is necessary, so long as we have not enacted this TIA and these other things, which if we do this in June, we start this process, this will not be needed. And I am the first, and I will say that openly. However, until I see an ordinance, until we start moving forward, I ask that we at least have second reading.
Yes, sir, Mr. Henderson.
Yes, I will support this for the sake that he's mentioning and the reasoning, but I hope that the same reasoning will be applied to other considerations for other districts when the time comes. Just like Mr. Johnson, I am highly concerned about how long some of these things will take to get in place and totally have completely sound to where there can be a legal soundness to what we put forward, and to where we can do what we should have been doing for a long time now. So therefore, both of the, I realize we're not talking about mine, but I'm just going to say this. I hope the same consideration is there, and to we need to look at the whole county, the whole situation. You're talking about the watershed overlay, to the TIA, to the CIP, and all that. Until that stuff is in place, we have to take action now. And I hope that we'll continue and be consistent. Thank you.
Mr. Williams.
When you take out the second half, like Mr. Johnson says, it's if we can already do it. And I don't look at it as just the councilman in the Fort Mill Township. It's this entire council can do decide not to do rezoning. I don't think we need to go through the process for something that we can already do. And then the other thing that it inhibits, and it's probably not on purpose, but if there were some down zonings that we wanted to do to decrease densities, we could not even entertain those, because the way it's going, you can't go from smaller to larger, but you can't go from larger to smaller either. So I don't see the need to do an exercise to create an ordinance for something that we can already do.
Mr. Winkler.
Start on. I voted for this on the first reading because I stated then that I thought we needed people, we needed ideas and we needed help with the growth and controlling the growth. Since then, we've figured out, or at that time figured out, that part of it was questionable at best legally. And the other part, we can, as has been stated multiple times tonight, we can pretty much do on our own. But for me, what I had hoped was that we would have people bring us ideas for things we can do to fix this, and because I did not know we had any. But since then, I knew we had done the zoning changes, which really changed density a whole lot. In talking with staff and other things, we have the TIA, and we've been assured, we've told staff that's a number one priority for us, and we've been assured that will be in place well before any of this would probably even take effect by the time we get through the readings. The CIP is another priority that does this without voting for an ordinance that we can do on our own. So at this time, because of what I've learned since the first vote, I will not be supporting the ordinance.
Mr. Roddy.
Well, I'll lead off by saying I didn't support it the first time it came up, but looking at some of the things that have been stricken from it, and knowing that we're working on the TIA and the CIP, I think when this ordinance came up, it prompted us to really look at the TIA and the CIP to help achieve what I think this ordinance was kind of setting out to do. It kind of, I don't want to say forced our hand, but it kind of sped the ball up a little bit for us to get to it. And so having said that, we're probably going to be able to achieve the same thing with the TIA and the CIP and some other things we're working on. And like it's already been stated, we can already not accept or turn down if we wanted to. But I think one thing that this ordinance probably would have done versus allowing individuals to come in and pay a fee for rezoning, it would have kept them from coming to pay a fee only to have us say no after we've taken their money for rezoning. So, but we can already do some things without having to pass an ordinance. Like I said, I didn't support the first time, but knowing that we can still achieve some of the same goals with some of the things we're working on now, I don't really see a need for an ordinance because we're already working on some of those ancillary type things that we can incorporate to utilize. So I probably won't be supporting it either.
Ms. Cox?
My understanding was that this council was interested in hearing from the public on this matter. It seems to me that we ought to do that. Looks like we're not going to do that. And to me, that's just proves to me that this was not ever intended to actually be something that was going to happen from this council. And I think that that's a shame because we've got to start getting away from the politics of the day and working on projects. So we at least need to look. It sounds to me like there's no support for this to move to second reading, which means the public will not get to be heard. And that's unfortunate to me. I do believe that we are making progress. I am interested to see the ordinances for the TIA be strengthened, for the CIP to be done. Seems like there was a different way that we could have gotten here in a much more productive way than we have, and that's what bothers me. I will be supporting this because I think that we should be moving to public hearing and be heard and allow the folks to be heard on this.
Well, let me wrap it up by just saying that I was pretty clear the first time this came up. I mean, the bottom line is this achieves nothing. We can do what it requires us to do now. So all it does is create a negative effect in the public. And I remember when I first started, we had a terrible unemployment rate. Jobs were lacking, and everybody was begging for work. We don't need, now that we've recovered, in fact, have a better unemployment rate than the state average now even. But that's something that you have to stay on top of every single day. Never, ever be comfortable with the jobs you have. So this achieves nothing in blocking future growth, zero. The normal time frame is when this expires, so you get the same result either way. But yet you get the negative image in the public, which Mr. Johnson pointed out, and I've had plenty of people point out to me in North Carolina and at the I-77 Alliance meeting. So it achieves nothing over what we can already do, and it creates a very negative business climate image for the county. So that being said, I'm
sorry. I thought you was about to close. May I speak, please?
Yes, sir.
Just want to make it clear the unbelievable pressure that Councilman Johnson and myself being under, and I hope that the rest of this council will understand, it was more than 2 years ago that I was told personally that we could, for whatever reason, we could turn down zoning because you could make a case about traffic safety, traffic situations, overcrowding of schools, infrastructure, the nuclear plant, whatever you may want to throw in there in the name of safety and other reasons. Then all of a sudden, it turns back around, and we have to rezone if it meets certain specifications. Which is it? It went on for a long time. There's too many mixed communications here that has got us to where we're at. But yet we have other council members getting mad at one another because we are trying to do something, right some wrongs, in order to try to have better management of this unbelievable growth. We want growth. We're almost treated as if we're some socialist or something, which is the furthest thing from the truth. And I'm seriously getting tired of being looked down on, shunned, and anyone else on here that is really wanting to consider how the management of the growth is at best poor. I'd appreciate it that this stuff of being having folks to get aggravated with me and other council members here that wants to help create a better atmosphere of growth and management, not stop prosperity, not stop business, has nothing to do with that. It's like everyone's forgetting the fact that we've got a big, big body of water out there that is endangered. And I'm not even an environmentalist. And I just don't understand why folks are shying away because of the least little boo from a lawyer. And I wish we'd get something that Bruce Jenner still has. I wished we would do it. I'm getting fed up with this running and hiding and taking cover every time somebody goes boo. Man up, woman up. Thank you.
Question on the motion. All those in favor of the motion as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
No.
No. Did you get it? Motion fails. Next item, council to consider second reading of an ordinance to amend the code of the County of York, South Carolina, Chapter 30, Section 10, to require members of boards and commission to annually disclose employer, spouses, employer, affiliated companies, and membership on public boards, to defend conflict of interest, to provide for disqualification of members who fail to fulfill contractual obligations to York County, to provide for removal by county council for failure to comply, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Second. Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, consider second reading of an ordinance entitled to establish operating and capital budgets for the operation of the county government of York County for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2016, to provide for the levy of taxes for York County for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2016, to provide for the expenditure of tax revenues and other county funds, and to provide for other fiscal matters related to county government.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Johnson.
I mentioned this 2 weeks ago when I met with Mr. Shanahan about this. My problem today is the same as it was 2 weeks ago. This council has been asked to adopt a budget that is $3.29 million in the red. We are going to lose $3.29 million this year. We were a business, we would not be a very successful business. We wouldn't even be a mediocre business. This council is spending more money than it has. You can spend it any way you want. Certainly, the $48 million that we have sitting in an account as our fund balance, that's taxpayers' money. That's $48 million of yours and I's and every taxpayer's money. And the right to spend it, I get it. Yeah, and I don't have a problem spending it on one-off building events, but you cannot spend it on reoccurring expenses. This budget calls for the hiring of approximately 7 employees. If you assume that is an average of, let's say, $400,000 for those employees, Next year, it's going to cost us $44,000 more to have those same employees, because it costs us 11% more every year for every employee. That's based on our own numbers. We spend 5% more for health insurance, 3% more for retirement, 3% more typically for a cost of living. Every year, we add more and more to the cost. Yet, every year we sit here and we hope for the best, and we hope that what we really hope is that 2021 doesn't ever come, because 2021 is the year that the fund actually drops below the 25% limit. And instead of saying, hey, how are we going to fix this? This budget calls for the maximum tax increase that this council can give, the maximum tax increase. Yet it does not cut spending. You have to balance a budget. I will not support a budget that I can't look at the people in my district and throughout the county and say, this is a balanced budget. We balance budgets in York County. That is that. I don't know. I'm not an economics major, but it seems like 101 to me. We should balance a budget. We should cut spending until we can balance a budget. And my biggest fear is instead of pulling back, we're adding reoccurring expenses, and these reoccurring expenses will catch up with us. There is no way they can't. Every year, another 11% for every employee. I'm not talking about getting rid of employees. I'm saying at some point, you got to quit adding what you can't afford. If you can't afford something, you don't buy it at my house. But in the government, you do, and you just say, oh, we're just going to run a deficit this year. We run a deficit 3 years I've been on, and on the 5-year projection I'm looking at, we're going to run a deficit through 2021 when we finally run out of money. I can't support this the way it is now. I'm going to look between now and 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whenever we vote on this again in June, to how we're going to close this gap of $3.29 million. I'm asking each of you to look at this. We have to have a plan to close this gap. So I will not be voting no tonight. I mean, I will be voting no tonight. Yeah.
That's going to fix that.
Yeah, I'm double negative.
Gentlemen
Going this way?
and lady?
You going
Yes,
this way?
yes, sir.
Yeah. I was just going to make a couple comments. Honestly, I haven't voted for a budget since I've been sitting up here, and I think, well, maybe I did last year. Did I? I think I did last year. I think last year was one of the first times I ever voted for one. But I think what a lot of us kind of, who've been around the block a couple of times, kind of hedge with, not against, is that our departments will turn in some of the money that we've allocated to them and not spend out the maximum which been set aside for them. And I think on average, off the top of my head, I don't know what's the average that comes back in annually from department heads that don't spend what's been allotted for their departments. We may budget to use 3.29 out of reserves, but the last several years, we haven't had to use those reserves, if I remember correctly. So I think that's kind of where the gap kind of gets made up, not spending the entire allotment for each department, because, you know, you hate to look at it this way, but department heads surely pride themselves to come back at the end of this fiscal year, the beginning of the following fiscal year, to say, hey, I saved some money. I didn't need as much as I thought I did. I didn't spend as much, or we were able to save by not hiring an employee right away. We maybe waited 6 months, so it only cost us a half a year's salary, or we didn't use as much gas, or fuel prices went down. Some of those things that you can't pinpoint, but they happen throughout the year, that allows us not to have to go over into the reserves nearly as much. In some cases, it hasn't happened. We've made budget to use those reserves, and by the next meeting, I'll find out exactly the last several years how much we've actually had to use reserves, but I don't think we've actually tapped into them nearly to the tune that we budget for. So I kind of understand how that's been working the last several years, and seeing that trend by being here. This is my 6th year, so I've been seeing it over the years, and when we're looking at certain line items, yeah, we have the tendency to go through and say, well, why are we budgeting for $50,000 this year in this account when they only spent 32, or they only spent 30? Well, we need that buffer just in case things do escalate a little bit. They may need that 20, that additional 20 that they didn't spend the previous year, or they may come in under the 32 this year, which allows a bigger buffer for them to turn back in at the end of the fiscal year. But I'll do my best to have some of those numbers at the next meeting to show this is what we intend to use out of reserves. This is what we actually used for the last 3-4 years, and that way it can kind of help shore up that the anticipated number that we would get back or we wouldn't have to use out of the 3.29 million that we're budgeting for. And the only other option would be is to increase the millage, but like Michael Johnson said, we've maxed out on that. But at some point, we have to address what's coming up 2021, because if we keep breathing, we'll all be here to see it. And so we have to make sure that we get the right things in place that allow us to not have to go up nearly as much when we don't have things coming off our debt services and some of those things that will happen between now and 2021. So I'll work on getting those numbers, but right now I'm going to support the budget.
Mr. Winkler?
You know, I do a lot of budgeting in my line of work and work with people on that, and I understand what Councilmember Johnson is saying. In my short time on council, I've discovered that there were some rather large deficits in some previous council, or some previous budgets that we've been and the one year I saw before I came on, and last year and now this year, that deficit is shrinking in what we're budgeting as a deficit. I still don't like a budgeted deficit, but as Councilmember Roddy said, we're many times being really conservative with what we're estimating as income from taxes, and we have not had a deficit like we estimated, but we have to. The government is not like many of us sitting out there who live on a budget. It's a little more like some of us that are business owners, but we don't know exactly what the government is going to take in because the government's not on a salary. It varies from month to month and quarter to quarter on what the taxes are and the fees and that type thing. So we budget as best we can on it, and as has been stated many times, we've got really good staff at the county level, and we don't spend what's budgeted, but we budget what our best estimate is. We're in the process of shrinking that deficit, but that's not something you can do overnight without layoffs and that type thing, and that's not something that I think, I see that we can do. People keep mentioning that we're increasing the maximum amount we can. That's true, but I also want to remind people that the voters voted on the bond referendum, and at that time, we were saying that that was going to increase taxes $26 on a $100,000 home. Thanks to the millage increase, the new value of a mill, the fact that we did not hire as many people as staff has asked for, and the budget constraint we have, even with the millage the tax increase that we're talking about, you're talking about the taxes going up less than $18 on a $100,000 home. So $8 less than what people actually voted to increase their taxes on. So I will support it at this time. I've been looking at options and trying to find cuts. Staff can, they've been getting emails from me many times, and all the council members have been copied on them. I've been looking at where we're spending and trying to find cuts, and I'll still do it. But I will support the budget at this time because we are cutting that deficit and we're working on eliminating it. So.
Let's go down the line, Ms. Cox.
At this point, I want to hear from the public. We have our public hearing. I think there are areas here, considering the increase in population of the unincorporated area, which is the issue that we're looking at, that's been very slight, and there have been properties that have been annexed by municipalities. So figuring out and capturing one of the biggest questions is, what is the cost to provide the services that we provide? And we're trying to capture that when it comes from an economic development perspective as well as the residents, because it's the residents who pay this tax. And my concern is that we continue to increase this and we continue to add now 7 employees, and the tax revenues aren't covering that. I echo the concerns that have been raised by Councilman Johnson, and I'm looking for ways, and I have specific ideas of what I think it should look like. I'm concerned specifically about things that other council members have talked about, not to mention the $500,000 in a water study. We have $2 million going to projects that will increase growth in the area, but which are, unfortunately, our existing tax rates aren't paying for. So those are prime areas for this $3 million shortfall that, to me, we've got to make sure that we understand all the ins and outs in order to justify it to the public.
I'm just going down the line. Mr. Henderson?
I'd like to talk again, but.
Yeah, I'm going to get you. Mr. Williams?
Well, call it spin, I guess I can do my spin, but I guess I'll probably do it again at third reading. So but I do want to just reiterate the fact that this county is in good financial standards, and it has been because of the way that we do the budget, and people ask for what they need, they only use what they need. So we have conservative estimates on the front end, and we only use what we need. We start cutting a lot of stuff, and we start cutting stuff based on the fact that they didn't use it last year. What they do is use it all this year, so they get it next year. That doesn't work long time, and then the model of having that anticipated revenue stream restored at the end of the year goes away. In fact, it's been restored every year but one. We have that chart that shows us running out of money in 2021 every year. It just keeps going out further. Started in 18 and now it's 2021. But I can't. It was. It's been in response to the economic slowdown that we waited probably a little too longer for it to return to normal before we realized this was the new normal, and now we are doing what we can with that.
Mr. Johnson?
I'm just going to, I normally don't speak twice, but I feel obligated. 2 years ago, we did run a deficit. So the numbers were actually correct when we ran our deficit. This budget calls for a maximum increase this year in taxes. And if you look at your chart, it actually calls for a max increase every year through 2021. Not a one-time, let's tax people, a maximum increase that we can under the law every year to 2021. Because if we don't raise taxes or cut spending, the deficit actually grows to 5.7 a year by 2021. I looked up, because I made a comment, we have 18 new employees that could be added at a cost of $1.38 million. Next year, those 18 employees will cost us $151,800 more. In year 2, they'll cost us $168,000 more. In year 3, they'll cost us $187,000 more. That's just assuming that 11% rate that we assume in every budget number. That's $507,000. That's half $500,000 in new taxes that'll have to be raised. On top of, they'll want people added next year and the year after and the year after and the year after. I believe the budgeting we do could best be described as it's a hope and a prayer budget. In other words, we hope and pray that departments don't spend all the money that they've asked for. Because if they do, this council's going to run a $3.29 million deficit. I'd prefer for us to actually pass a budget that balances. Obviously, we're going to have a workshop, public hearing, and a third reading before this is all done. There has to be a better way to do this. There has to be a better way than just to hope that bad things don't happen and that we don't actually spend every dollar we budget. Because if we had to, if the economy turned down, which economies tend to do about every 7 to 10 years anyway, what then? How much more? Is this council going to continue to max raise taxes on everyone? Or is this council going to do what it did 5, 6 years ago, quit raising taxes? Well, now you're running massive deficits and you don't have a general fund that can handle it. We're at a fork in the road, in my opinion. The economy is good. Keep taxing it. Maybe business won't be too good. South Carolina, highest property taxes in the country on business. Let's keep raising that and see how we do when we want to go attract businesses. We don't like to give fee and lose, yet when we do, we're still not competitive with North Carolina. They're beating us. Their numbers are better. We have a broken tax system in the state, but we have a broken budget on the York County Council. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Shanahan.
Got to get used to this thing. Just a couple of things. The $3.2 million from fund balance, that is for one-time occurrence. We can push everything back. And I'm not disagreeing with Councilman Johnson about the bodies, but we can push that back. And when you look at that projection scale, each year it goes out is based on that $3.2 million, either going up a little bit. So it's not as accurate, that scale is not as accurate as it should be. We do not know every year what the tax increase is going to be, the millage increase. We do not know what the state is going to say we can do. We do not know what our one-time fund balance needs are going to be each year because, you know, this year we got a roof. We won't have a roof next year, we hope. Or if we do, it'll be a smaller roof someplace. So there's a lot of guesstimating in this process. And so we don't know a lot of that stuff. Just, you know, we did raise it 1.4 mils, and if you add that out, it's like 1,600,000, something like that. And we were asked for $5.3 million worth of new positions. The sheriff's department asked for $3-point-something million out of that. You know, we went with $898,000 worth of positions because some of those will be paying for themselves. But again, you can't say 2021 is going to go away because we don't know that. And Councilman Johnson was 100% correct. Several years ago, way before any of our times, you know, when we had the opportunity to balance and everything, they didn't raise it, they didn't balance it, they gave it back, and we're paying the price for some of that. We do not know what's going to happen. I do know today, as you all know, that we don't have the bodies to do the job and provide the service that our citizens need us to do, and I truly believe those positions we request and will help us do that. Just want to throw those things out.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I have
Mr. Roddick.
one quick comment. It requires, if, this is a statement about how Columbia treats all the counties throughout the state. And my question or comment is, if the state legislators would fully fund the local government fund, how much would we be coming up short? Because part of what we're having to finance is the shortfall that they don't allocate to us year after year. And I've been told that they've allocated more, but they're not fully funding the local government fund, which then in turns puts more pressure on us to have to keep up. So if we could find out how short are they funding us with the LGF? And I think we'll be surprised with, if they were to fully fund that, what we would be running. We probably wouldn't have to go up as much on the taxes. But if they were to fully fund the LGF, which is the local government fund, to people who are not familiar with the acronym, you'd be surprised we'd be even in better shape, because they are cutting us ridiculously short on what they're sending us to cover the services that they mandate we provide and things that we have to do per their laws coming out of Columbia. So if we can get that number.
Well, just to wrap it up, I find that I'm in agreement with pretty much every statement made, including in the past, I've seen it from the state perspective on the LGF. But I think this year it's a hard argument for them to explain why they couldn't do what they're supposed to do. So that's a legitimate point. I greatly appreciate Mr. Johnson's thorough points on this issue. He's got my attention a lot. I do have some of the same concerns, but I also realize how hard the staff has worked on this within the boundaries that they can work and how much they've done to try to minimize the impact. So based on that, and based on Ms. Cox's comment about public input, I'm certainly going to make my final decision on our final reading, but I think there's some areas that we need to clear up. And if I could have staff just this deficit versus not in a deficit, because I understood the projected deficit the past few years, that then we didn't really end up with a deficit. So if I could get some clear clear delineation on that, so there's not so much back and forth, and that's not right. And yes, sir, Mr.
If I could,
Winkler.
I'm sorry, Mr. Shanahan sent us an email earlier today with a PowerPoint on it. And we're overspending by $3.2 million. But it lists
On this budget.
$3.2 million that are all one-time expenses. It's not recurring revenue that we're spending. It's a land acquisition for the Fort Mill Convenience Center. It's the Western Spec
Right.
Building, which is part of non-grant portion that was already voted on, is already done. It's a one-time thing for that building. The Western Utility Study is something I think we really need to seriously look at. That's a lot of money that I'm not sure about, so that might be a cut we could do there. CAMA is not, it is a,
That's
that's not a one-time, but it's a 5-year. So, and at the end of 5 years, that's gone. That's just splitting up the cost of CAMA over the next 5 years. So the $3.2 million that is a deficit is not recurring revenue. It's one-time expenses that we're pulling out to pay those one-time expenses.
So if those went away,
We're balanced.
Yeah, so if there could be just the finance department, just give clean lines of clarification, so there's not so many gray areas being tossed around.
Councilman Johnson is 100% right. When we bring in new bodies, every year they do go up.
Yep.
I mean, there's no taking away, but, and it's not just population growth, it's business growth, it's home growth, and services increase. And we've also, we gutted the highway department several years back, and so,
During the recession.
yeah. And those are things that we have to, the workload is back to where it was then, but the manning definitely isn't. And I'm not saying it needs to be back to where it was, but it definitely needs to be where we can provide a service to our citizens.
Well, I think that was the one department where the council members were kind of saying, why not more? I mean, they were expecting it for the planning department.
And I think some of this comes out, one of the things I do every fall is I go to Gold Hill Elementary School in my district, and I teach a class to first graders, and we talk about needs and wants.
Yes, sir.
I think this council should start looking at our needs versus our wants. We want a whole lot of things. I think what we need is a lot less.
So, no further comments. This is second reading. We, per Ms. Cox's point about the public hearing coming up, we've got a lot more time to vet this. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
That was two? Okay. Consider second reading of an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a fee in lieu of tax agreement by and between York County and a company known for the time being as Project Crown, whereby York County will enter into a fee in lieu of tax agreement with Project Crown and providing for payment by Project Crown of certain fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes, providing for the allocation of fee in lieu of taxes payable under the agreement for the establishment of a multi-county industrial business park, and other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item. Consider approval of nominated applicants for service for boards and commissions from the Finance and Operations Committee meeting on May 9th, 2016, along with nominations from the floor. Ron Becknell, Board of Rural Fire Control, Fire Chief's recommendation, but I'll let the Chair of the Finance and Operations provide further input.
Motion to approve Ron Becknell, Board of Rural Fire Control.
Second.
And if there's no nominations from the floor, any further discussion? Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, consider first reading of an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes and incentive agreement by and among York County, a company known to the county as Project Glass, as sponsor and to be named sponsor affiliate, to provide for a fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes incentive, the inclusion of the project in a multi-county industrial park, and the grant of an infrastructure credit and other related matters.
Move to approve.
Second. Discussion. Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, consider first reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 35 of the York County Code relating to taxation and finance so as to add new section 35.150 entitled Economic Development Project Development Fund, to provide for the creation of the fund and its purposes and uses, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Second. Discussion. Question, yes, ma'am, Ms. Cox.
I have some heartburn in light of what we just discussed with our budget. We have approved in the budget, or what we are slated to approve, is an increase in the ED budget of $2 million in order to fund specific projects. And what we're now looking at is adding to that when we recognize that we can't pay for the growth that we're now experiencing. Initially, my first reaction to this is that this is corporate welfare on steroids. And then I backed off a little bit to think, what are the benefits that doing this would have? And these are my concerns. And I'm, in my mind, willing to hear the reasons for doing this. But I support feedlots. We obviously need that to counterbalance what the state is doing. We need to do that. The county taxpayers and the small businesses are the ones who are going to be paying for that. The only ones who could take advantage of this are going to be the large businesses. The question I have are we creating another fund or a pot of money and siphoning off from the general fund to create another pot of money where folks are going to be fighting over what projects get done? Who gets the money? Whose land is going to get paid for under this? What projects are going to get funded? What is the priority? I don't have an understanding of what is the priority that our ED board is going to be looking at in terms of spending this money if the council were to approve this amount. Right now, I cannot tell what is the formula, and I would like an explanation of this at the next council meeting. How are we arriving at, is what we're doing actually benefiting us? Because right now, are we factoring into things such as the deficit in this budget of $1 million for the growth that we're experiencing in Fort Mill? Is that factored into this cost analysis? Roads, we can't pave our current roads right now. The idea is that we have to attract the businesses by creating these opportunities, but is that translating into work, or are we essentially just increasing the tax burden onto the individuals? Is there any small business advantage to this? My understanding is that none of the small businesses would be affected by this and will not be able to benefit from this sort of project. We do not look at the small businesses in that. That concerns me. The small business is what carries us in this state and in this county. And we don't have any incentives or funding to help with that. Government, this is government growing. We're siphoning off, again, money that would typically go into the general fund to increase growth that we have just now said as a council we can't afford to keep up with. I don't understand how it's fair to all of the other departments in the county to take that percentage off. How is that translating into it's not creating cost to the individual taxpayer? I am prepared to hear from our department head on why this makes sense. I will allow this to go to second reading, but I am not, right now, if I were to vote on this, I would vote no. And I obviously, in one vote, but that's where I stand on this.
Okay. I don't want to put you on the spot, Mr. Winkler. Do you have any comments being chair of that committee?
Well, I think Mr. Swenson's probably better qualified to answer most of those questions, but I do think that, you know, that this is something that, as Councilmember Cox said, feedlots are a necessary evil. I've said that before on council. In the environment that created. We are talking about future feedlots who, you know, may or may not even happen at this point. We're not talking about any money from the current budget on anything. and we need more of those industrial and manufacturing employment type jobs that pay living wages to help offset the taxes that we pay as homeowners. And so this is a way for us to compete in some of those areas. And again, anything that does happen with this money, just like any other expense that the county makes, would come before council to be voted on. So it's got to get at least 4 votes no matter what. But again, I think Mr. Swenson is much better qualified to answer a lot of those questions. We have vetted this through the Economic Development Committee and suggested it come out for a full vote before council.
David, per Mr.
You want to get to other council comments so you can address them all at one time?
Well, that'd be a good point. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that common sense. I was about to get off on the wrong tangent.
All right, well, you
Mr.
probably
Williams.
didn't see my hand, it was raised, but at any rate, yeah, I'm going to support this at first reading, but I couldn't support it if it was third reading, but if it doesn't get to third reading, it can evolve into something that I possibly can. There's 2 big concerns I have with it. One is that if we wanted to move the money there today, we can just move it out of the general fund and put it in there. And that's something that we're struggling with budget and talking about doing it. I mean, if that's important enough to us, then we ought to be able to own that vote. The one thing that I told Mr. Swenson that I'd like to see, and he sent me some preliminary numbers. The way I look at it, we're cutting the general fund. We know we depend on money from corporations to fund the services we provide residentials. Philo's reduced that amount in the first place, and I'm not arguing that we need to do them. But Philo's reduced that in the first place. This reduces that amount further. I just want to get a better handle on, we've been quoting 10-year-old figures, and we talked about before, we're getting a better handle on exactly how much it costs to serve a residence versus a commercial. I'd like to see those numbers before we decide to cut those off and then decide whether the 10% investment every year is worth that. Because I understand theoretically, we get more business and it pays for residential. But if we aren't 100% sure what those numbers are, how do we know where we're going? So those are the concerns that I had.
Mr. Henderson.
Again, I'd like to see a clarification of the structure of you pronounce it philo, but philot. We'll try it 2 different ways. But anyway, I'd like to see that, and I realize we've been doing that, and like you said, sir, that it's a necessary evil in order to be able to compete because of Act 388 and some other obstacles that we have. But I'm also concerned about what Councilman Cox was talking about as far as small business goes. You know, regardless, I understand what the deal is with Columbia, but folks, we do not treat small business, our bread and butter, like we should. We don't. We pick winners and losers. You know, whenever you take it way beyond these felots, and to me, it's almost like we're adding insult to injury and adding more gas to the fire as far as corporate welfare, if you will. So there has to be a line drawn, and I just, at this point now, and I know this is just first reading, but I can't support this under the conditions based upon some other reasons already spoken and being consistent with what several of us have already said tonight, including myself.
David, are you prepared to address some concerns tonight?
I can address some of the concerns first.
Okay.
Thank you for
David Swenson, our
thank you
Economic Development Director.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity to come and just give some perspective on what we were looking at with this ordinance and working through the committee and leadership here. So last year, it was developed the Economic Development Fund through proceeds from Knight Stadium, as was stated earlier. Those resource funds were prescribed in intent to help us develop more product, get us positioned so that York County can be competitive in the economic development area, particularly in the business park development area. Those dollars, I think, are over $800,000 sitting in that account, similar to an account set up like we have with Pennies for Progress. And those are dedicated accounts that have specific purpose that, as stated, would have to come back for approval by this council. So there is direction, yes, by the advisory board, and that advisory board has stated we need to look at developing more product in York County. How we develop that is under discussion and evaluation in this county, as it could be done single by York County going alone, but that takes credible dollars, significant dollars, and that's what this ordinance addresses. It could be also in partnership, working with another public body or two that would want to co-opt the cost. It could also be in collaborative partnership with a public-private partnership, whereby the private sector developer comes in and does some cost sharing with a public body or bodies in the case of a public-private partnership. So to address a couple of the concerns, let's talk about the competitive position that we have. We have fee in lieu of tax for a reason. I think most of you understand that. You've been asking questions, and we've been passing the right incentive packages for the right deals. Small businesses are included in those categories as it relates to qualified fee in lieu of tax agreements, particularly as it relates to the minimum threshold that a company has to invest. $2.5 million to be able to negotiate with you all for the fee in lieu of tax agreement. That's a critical structure element that's set by the state legislature. Okay? Small businesses are helped by other abatements that are offered by ordinance that you pass in some municipalities, so they do get assistance. They also get state tax credits. As stated by the legislature, we are in a tier structure, so we're in the developed status, but there are small business tax credits which are half of the value of what the normal tax credit is. That goes to help small business. Now, what it doesn't do in our incentive structure is address the retail centers and things there that chases the rooftops that have been growing in York County. What we're doing with the incentive packages and programming that we try to go and administer day in and day out here is go after value created, the office centers, the manufacturing centers, some of the warehouse and distribution jobs that pay really well. That's the kind of incentive projects that we're putting in front of you to consider. And some of the ones are small business. Harold Industries is an example of a small business, and you all provided an incentive there in East York Industrial Park. So those are some of the key things. Why this fund and why this amount and some of the mechanics and how it'll work. When we looked at the competitive landscape, I looked across 11 different counties, comparative counties in South Carolina. How did they address this issue? A couple of them went out and did bond referendums, significant bond referendums. Their citizens felt like they needed to invest in industrial parks and the infrastructure to support growth of their existing parks. They passed them, and they have significant monies. We have chosen not to do that at this time. We're investing in other areas. Other counties have put in significant percentages of their fee in lieu deals over numerous years, and those have brought significant revenues. One of them's brought $1 million a year annually into their economic development programming. And right now, we're at a budget level of $690,000, I think, is our public sector contribution for our operating budget, not including the $800,000, which we hope that will grow, and this is an avenue in which we can grow that. 10% would be after we apply the special source revenue credit that each county may, or a company may or may not get applied to their fee in lieu of tax agreement, as well as the 1% that we would do as a multi-county industrial park agreement. So it would be 10% then taken off of the fee stream, paid into the fund, and then the rest of remaining funds or dollars from the fee in lieu of tax agreement would be dispersed to the taxing entities as their prorated share percentage. So that's the technical aspects of it. I can answer any questions that y'all might have.
Questions for David? Yes, sir, Mr. Riley?
What would be the difference just coming and ask for that money when you needed it versus go ahead now setting it aside?
I guess
budget it?
Sure, good question. I guess what it's stating by doing it this way is that you are taking a dedicated new funding stream into the county. Because remember, the new fee in lieu of tax agreements are not accounted in the general fund. It's saying we're going to pay ourselves in this manner so that we can use those funds in a dedicated team approach to go in and invest in economic development efforts in the future. To go in and ask questions from the general fund, it could be done, but I think it takes a lot more time and effort and complexities to the structure of how do you go out and invest and be a participant in a economic development project or product development effort.
Bump, I'd like to answer your question as well. I think the difference between trying to create a reoccurring revenue fund for it versus pulling it out of the general fund is the difference between York County Forever 7 years ago and today. 7 years ago, York County Forever was a vibrant organization that could afford to go out and do the purposes that this council set it to do, which was to buy land and set it aside. Today, York County Forever has a set amount of money that is something that they can't grow at all. And they're basically at the whim of this council of whether or not they'll ever get another dime. If we want to grow business, and the point of growing business is to broaden the tax base. 61% of all of the taxes generated in the unincorporated parts of Fort Mill are from residential homes. 39% are from businesses. That is an unsustainable model long-term. You will eventually tax those people out of their own homes in order to keep up basic services. You have to have a business tax base. And the only way, unfortunately, the system is rigged in South Carolina.
It is
It is
rigged.
rigged
You're
against
right.
us.
It's rigged.
And we have to encourage businesses to come here. And the only way to do that is to give incentives. Whether that incentive is simply paving a road for $250,000 or helping defer their impact fee. These are the little things that help us attract business. That's what this is set up to do. I'm encouraged that at least everybody's willing to listen for another 2 weeks. And hopefully over the next 2 weeks, Mr. Swenson can come back before us and answer everyone else's final questions. But this is the cost if we want to generate more revenue. If you want to close this gap on $3.29 million, you better bring in businesses, because I can tell you, houses can't generate this kind of money. They demand too many services.
Yeah, I just want to see the chart that proves that.
Well, I'd like to see it too, so.
I think that's what we all definitely
Yeah.
want to see.
Can I
Mr.
respond to that? The chart that says that, we have had an interesting 8 months trying to figure this out. At first, I thought finance was doing it, but it wasn't working out. It was something that needed to be done outside. So we contacted the State Department of Commerce, and because they're the ones that give those numbers. And so my question was, what exactly is the cost of service on a house versus the cost of service on a business? And how did you come up with that formula? Well, the next 3 months or so, I'm backwards and forwards with them, because you know what? They didn't know how they came up with a formula. I said, okay, not a problem. Give me the numbers. And that's been about another 3 months, and nobody now all of a sudden can give me any numbers of what the actual cost of services are. I have checked with ICMA to see how do you all come up with cost of services, but unless we want to spend $150,000, that isn't working. So the next step in this process is contacting other municipalities or counties and say, do you have something like this? Now, thank God Rock Hill has something like this in place. So I've got a copy of what they're doing and how they're costing it out, and maybe it's something we can use. They have services we don't have and vice versa. So we might be able to put something together, but it is, to actually get someone to commit to it, it has been impossible at the state
We don't have
level.
the numbers.
Yeah, I
That's what I'm
can
hearing
see
you say.
that, because they're going to be, we're going to have to generate some kind, and you're right, we might not be able to do it ideally, but the sheriff, and I guess you could take the sheriff's budget, and the sheriff spends this much time on residential calls and this much time on commercial calls, and then you say, if it's 15% commercial, and then you put that number there, and then you do that with the other budgets. And we don't need to spend a whole bunch of money to get it
I
100% right, but if we can get it close, we'll at least have something to hang our hat on.
I agree, and when we get done with this budget process, then I'll put together a couple of folks that have been helping me with the budget process, and we will figure out from what someone else is doing, how we can piggyback off it.
Ms. Cox?
This is the kind of information I'm looking for, is that I don't think it's just as easy as how much are house calls calling us versus a business. I think it has to do with road and infrastructure, what it's costing us, and there needs to be an analysis of this. It seems like we don't have that number. And this gets back to the question that I've asked for when we do these feedlots, how many of the jobs are transferee jobs? And folks can sit up here. Our job is to represent and be a steward of the existing taxpayers and existing dollars that we're bringing in. And the question that I have is, not all projects are the same. If you're bringing in and asking someone, hey, come over here for the next 30 years, but they're going to bring their whole staff with them and they're going to enjoy everything, and the majority of the jobs are going to be folks transferring in, that impact is important, because that project caused an influx of thousands of people that then is getting attributed to the people, but really it had to do with the business generation efforts that we claimed were necessary. We're inviting the problem to ourselves. So that's the kind of analysis I want to see at second reading. And I hope I'm not making a mistake by allowing it to go to second reading, because I really am not at all interested. I have very big concerns about this, but I trust David, and I'm looking forward to the justifications that you bring forward, and I will certainly keep an open mind. But every project, and we know the certain projects with that, and you've said this in meetings about projects maybe not being the projects that have translated into what this council needs, and that's what I'm looking to you to explain at the next meeting.
And in the write-ups that we provide,
Yes.
there is documentation. We're highlighting, if we know it, and they will tell us how many relocating jobs out of the estimated total jobs. We are documenting that if we know it. And we don't always get it, because sometimes they don't know. The companies don't know. We will get it if we can.
We need to kind of wrap this up. I think everybody's asked their questions, but Mr. Winkler and then Mr. Henderson, then we quit.
I'll be very short. I just wanted to point out that, as Mr. Swenson said, our information does show the number of new employment and the number of relocating jobs when he gives us the fee in lieu of stuff. And the other thing is, I don't think the cost of services is cut and dried as we'd like to think it is. $120,000 home probably doesn't pay for itself, but in Fort Mill, where it's a $400,000 home, it probably comes a lot closer to paying for the cost of services for itself. So I don't think it's a cut and dried residential costs us and commercial doesn't.
It is cut and dried, depends on how much, but anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Henderson.
Sitting here debating on whether I should take it further onto the rabbit trail with some of you folks. But, you know, and y'all have heard me say this recently, and I'm afraid that I'm going to forget it. And I think, you know, if y'all would please consider the situation about the 5% increments in reducing and helping with this, since we're discussing budget. Consider the museum, the CHC, about dropping it 5% a year for the next 5 years, and get help with this budget.
They were.
We're kind of, that's kind of off this topic completely, so I'm going to foster that monster a little bit, but and we're not going there right now, but I would suggest, since you are part of us reforming that board to make it right and clean up all the problems, and now that they've gotten to a point where they now can foster forward thinking and private funds, it might be good to work with that board and meet with them, hear what they have to say, and give them an opportunity to move forward in that direction, instead of just kind of getting them where we want them and then we kind of cut them off. But that's another topic, another day. Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, council to consider the approval to purchase stream mitigation credits in the amount of $35,422.50 for the Pennies 3 project, South Carolina 160 East from Springfield Parkway to the county line. Hello?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, consider authorizing staff to apply for and accept, if awarded, for fiscal year 2017 solid waste grants for a total of $33,500 with no matching funds.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, council to consider the sheriff's office request for authorization to apply for and accept, if awarded, Paul Coverdale Forensic Science Improvement Grant in the amount of $32,500. No local match is required.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, council to I'm sorry?
On number 7, you will find in your yellow folder an email from Jerry Hoffman, and for number 7, what it does is it identifies what they'll be using that money for, because the issues in number 7 on your agenda talk about a new lab tech position for DNA, and this will not be used for a new body.
Say that last statement
Yeah,
again.
it's got a in the description on number 7, it's got a lab tech position, but in the in the memo in the back, it's got the piece of equipment. So that transformation just didn't get made. Instead of spending $60,000 on a lab position, they're spending it on a piece of equipment.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. So, I can't remember now if I read that item or not. I
No,
didn't.
sir.
Okay. Council to consider the sheriff's office request for authorization to apply for and accept, if awarded, a NIJ backlog reduction grant in the amount of $150,000. No local match is required.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
I want
Yes,
to
Mr.
make
Johnson.
sure that what you're saying is that under number 1, that we is not going to hire another position, because I'm voting against this if we're hiring a job.
It is,
Refer to the.
it is not hiring a position, sir.
Yeah.
Any other comments? There being none. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, council to consider authorization for contract negotiations regarding RFQ 2339 for consulting services associated with the development of Ebenezer Park's master plan.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, council to consider award of bid number 2340 regarding the purchase of automated DNA extraction instrument for use by the sheriff's office to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Government Scientific Source of Restone, Virginia, for a total cost of $57,590.02. And I did get the clarification, and I probably should have asked before the first reading, my bad, but I'm good with everything now for FYI for the other council members.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item. Council to consider, excuse me. Council to consider authorization for contract negotiations regarding our RFQ 2344 for architectural and engineering design services associated with the construction of York County's Public Works Recycling Center.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item. Council to consider award of bid number 2345 regarding road improvement initiative for Parham Road as part of the Pennies for Progress 3 project to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Blythe Development Company of Charlotte, for a total cost of $7,037,591.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Here again, I should have probably asked this before now, but Blythe is not the one that had the issues in North.
Boggs.
Okay.
Another B.
Right, it was another B. That B threw me off.
That isn't the,
There's
that
two
isn't
Blythes,
the,
too.
is it Blythe?
No, no,
Not
no.
the one connected to
Blythe,
Boggs.
Blythe,
Right,
Blythe.
no, no.
What
They
is
are
the
two
one
Blythes.
linked?
Boggs.
Yeah, Boggs, but they're,
They are
And
two
it's a
Blythes.
Lynch's,
now Sprout is
that's
Lynch's,
right.
okay.
Yeah, they're both good.
Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, council to consider award of bid number 2351 for the furnishing of unitized meals for the 2016 summer feeding program to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Compass Group USA, doing business as Canteen Vending Services of Charlotte, North Carolina, for a total cost of $268,740.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Just,
Yes, sir, Mr.
real
Winkler.
quick, just to point out that this is, not out of our general funds. This is federally funded, so it's not something that we're approving to spend out of our taxes. It's still our taxes, excuse me, but, yeah.
Thank you, sir. Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, consider first reading of an ordinance to adopt York Forward, the 2035 York County Comprehensive Plan, including the Comprehensive Land Use Plan map, plan elements, and appendices pursuant to the Code of Laws of South Carolina, Title VI, Chapter 29, entitled South Carolina Local Government Comprehensive Planning Enabling Act of 94, to hold a public hearing and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Cox.
You can start.
Yes, sir, Mr. Roddy.
Well, I'll lead the charge. I have an issue with the urban service boundary not being extended. That's kind of my hang-up. It takes out the possibility of ever seeing Dave Lyle come to fruition. You know, that even though that's down the line a little bit. What?
It's in there.
That we would have to take it out to follow the
I
planning.
thought they did.
No, well, no, I
Planning
think,
Commission wants it
Mr.
out.
Michael, let me ask you, because when it says appendices, that's not what the planning commission did.
I was told it.
Because I was
they didn't
thinking that,
extend.
I was under the same impression.
No,
Mr.
for
Roddy.
clarification purposes, the way staff has handled this, we had the resolution from the Planning Commission. It is a recommendation. They had 4 conditions as a recommendation. We, however, did not change the plan at all. Those recommendations are presented to council. You can incorporate them in your motion. You can disregard them.
Okay, so if we accept as is, then it's what the Comprehensive Land Use Committee decided, not the Planning Commission.
Exactly.
Appended amendments. Okay, well, I appreciate that, Mr. Roddy. I was under the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
mistake.
I withdraw my comments.
Oh.
Comment. Okay, that's it?
Yep.
Okay. No? Mr. Williams?
Yeah.
Did we vote on this?
Not yet. My only comment is I'd certainly pay attention to the comments that the planning commission made and some of the tools in the toolkit. We may put it back in. This is first reading. The USB I've gotten, there's been some back and forth on that. I certainly don't want to create a problem area like Fort Mill and Lake Wiley as suggested by some emails. I've talked to several of my folks on the comprehensive land use plan, as well as my planning commission representatives, to get their input. So far, they feel fine with the USB being extended as proposed. I do have one more that I haven't been able to talk to yet. But I'm not interested in, I think the whole purpose of the comprehensive plan is to keep that from happening. If it's shown that it does, I will be hesitant to make that extension as well.
Mr. Henderson?
I'll support this time, but I hope that we will reconsider to tweak this, change it up a little bit. I think it's just a matter if folks want it done or not. And to put the overlay in there in District 2, it really needs to be done. And it was talked about, and what I understood, that it was admitted to that it would have helped on the growth and the management of growth if it would have been put there.
And just a comment on that, remember, this is for future goals, but not an ordinance per se that would kind of go in the direction you're headed there. Any further comments? Mr. Johnson?
The urban service boundary, when you extend it, what you are saying is that this area is ready to be developed. Now, that may mean that it literally is ready. You've laid the infrastructure. You've done all the things you're supposed to do to make it ready for development. In this case, I don't think that is true when you look down the Dave Lyle corridor area. I don't believe we've spent a dime getting that ready for it. When the day comes, and that day's in the next 10 to 15 years, maybe 20 years, we can extend the urban service boundary anytime this council is ready and willing and able to spend the money and the resources to help develop that area, then we should certainly extend it out at that point. My problem as I sit here today is we're going to extend it out. We're going to say we're open for business. No one has told me that we have a plan for how we're going to pay for that infrastructure when the time comes. Nobody's told me what that plan, what that development out there is going to look like, how all of a sudden you're going to take a very rural area and turn it urban. I understand all this. Hey, you've got to be on the list if you ever want to build the Dave Lyle extension. It wasn't on the list for the past, 12 years, 14 years, yet somehow the Dave Lyle extension gets talked about all the time, amazingly enough. And we talk about, submitting it to the SIB, yet it wasn't on the list. I struggle with extending this boundary to an area that is truly not ready. If it were ready, and if this council showed a propensity to be willing to spend the money to help it get ready, I'd be the first one to say, yes, let's extend the urban service boundary. I'm going to support first reading, but that's going to be a problem that I have moving forward, and that's a question I'm going to want answered, is to explain to me how we're ready. How are we ready as a county to make sure that the development out there is done correctly and not haphazardly, which leads to sprawl?
Mr. Winkler.
Sorry, I passed up earlier, I apologize, but I just want to say, we've all appointed people to this committee, the staff and citizens have spent the last 18 months working on this. They've had feedback, we've had opportunities to give them feedback, to speak to our appointees, and this is what came of the consensus of all of it. It is a plan where we think growth should happen. And so, for that reason, eventually 10, 20, 15 years down the road, this plan's a 10-year plan, it makes sense that there will be some growth out Dave Lyle Boulevard, and so I will support it as the citizens and our appointees have presented it.
Ms. Cox, and I'll make my 2 cents and we'll move on.
I had the privilege of attending Elevation Church this past Sunday. My daughter wanted to go try out this new church. She's going to college. And what was interesting about the topic was the preacher talked about what is progress? What is progress? And he biblically went back to Philippians and started looking at Philippians and what Paul, when he was in jail and talking about what circumstances you find yourself and how are you going to use your efforts? Where are you going to put your efforts? And what was interesting about what he said, I think applies to this council. He says progress is not just a function of your effort. You can spend all day long working as hard as you can, and you can go get as many people to show up for a meeting and vote for something for you, and you could spend your whole day spinning your little boat with your little oar round and round in circles. But is that progress? No, it's not progress. What makes progress is effort plus direction. Direction is key. What are you focusing your resources on? Where are you focusing your efforts in terms of how you're going to invest not only your people time, but your money? In this case, there is absolutely no question in my mind that our budget issue right now, we can't afford to address the concerns that the folks in District 5 are going to have if we extend this within the next 10 years. We can't do it within the next 10 years. I am growing increasingly concerned by the fact that we have a council that had a planning commission that made recommendations that we not extend it at this time. And some of the reasoning is because we know better than you, we're more educated than you, a layperson doesn't understand. Well, I will tell you that the folks on this planning commission have a lot of engineering background. They are citizens that serve our community. We should be listening to them. And we're not listening to them. And not only that, we completely avoided a public hearing on an issue that at least the public should have had an opportunity to speak on earlier on in this agenda. Who are we serving up here? What is our focus? We certainly don't have the funds in this budget to deal with the problems with the roads. In fact, Sturgis Road, we had to put a no-through truck because it cannot handle the truck traffic for the small developments that are happening beyond that portion. The dump trucks are tearing up the road because we're not ready yet. Do I think that Dave Lyle Extension will happen? Do I think that that's a natural progression at some point? Maybe. It certainly isn't within this next 10 years, though. And this is where are we going to focus our money? Where are we going to focus our efforts? Are we just going to put a shotgun out here and shoot, oh, we want to grow all the way around here and everywhere? We're never going to make progress. We're never going to make progress at this rate. What I'm asking this council to do is to listen to the people when they come up and talk at the public hearing. Please listen to them. Listen to our planning commission that voted to make changes to what was done. Listen to the facts, and please keep an open mind. Please keep an open mind before you make a decision on an issue like this, because I think we could very easily be accused of doing special interest projects and putting ourselves in a situation that our Fort Mill neighbors and our Tegakay neighbors and our Clover neighbors are struggling with right now because we do not have a plan for this anticipated growth in that area.
Is that, you want to speak?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, Mr.
Real quick, you know, I think we'll be fooling ourselves if we think we will have the funding to pour into Dave Lyle. I think the concept and the mindset behind the whole Dave Lyle concept hinges on the SIB and the state being able to kick in some funding, because we're looking at probably $250, $300 million to make that thing happen. There's no way we could do it through York County's funds. That all hinges on what we're able to pull from the state. You know, so we can't sit up here and say, let's wait till we get in position to be able to sink that kind of money in. But from my understanding, if we don't have certain measures in place, you just can't put them in place overnight to be able to appeal to the State Infrastructure Bank and the guys out of Columbia who fund some of these mega projects to bring them to the area. You know, we'll be fooling ourselves to think we can increase our taxes enough to chip in any reasonable amount of money to go to that project. All this hinges on what Columbia can do for York County at that point. So let's don't say we're trying to put this on the taxpayers' back to fund it. Let's don't say we're driving this for special interest. But the study that I've read from Winthrop University lays out the economic impact from the jobs to the tax base. This was done a while back. And when I got on council, obviously we've handed several different things that related to Dave Lyle, the UDO, and all kind of stuff. That's the one thing that I held on to, because I'm a Winthrop alum, and anytime I see something with Winthrop on it, and obviously it affects York County, and the impact that, the possibility of what Dave Lyle can bring on a tax base. We talk about struggling to pay, make the budget happen. When you look at the economic component of Dave Lyle with the mixed use and commercial driven, not to say it's not, even when we moved some boundaries a couple years ago. And we told the residents in that area who came and fought so vigorously about us including that area, we told them this was not a next week, next month, next year, 5-year situation. This is probably going to be 10 years away before we get to the point of any dirt even turning over. It's a long ways out. But if you don't plan for long term, you're not going to get long term. So that's what the whole USB and looking at the Dave Lyle concept is about. And we'll be short-minded to think this is going to happen in the next 5 years. I would beg to differ if anyone ever sat here and said, let's wait till we get proper funding. This is a 5-year away project. I'll say you're wrong. You know, there's no way you can act from anywhere from planning to developers. There's no way this thing is even remotely close to being 5 years of even getting ready to plan. But if we don't take certain steps, we're never going to get ourselves in position to be able to accept anything that may be coming down the pipe. And that's all it is. You got to have a vision, but not a pipe dream. So this is more of a vision of York County starting something 7, 8, 9, 10 years down the road. But I say let's get things in place. I certainly didn't get on council to look at 1 and 2 and 3 year plans. I'm thinking 10, 20, 30 year plans. So that's kind of my take on the whole thing.
Well, let me go ahead and wrap it up. And I'm kind of bound by my position as chair, so it'd probably be good that I'm chair today for sure. I'm a lot more frank when I'm not chair. But I grew up on that side of town. And when there's complaints about no growth, what's the problem? And then I hear efforts to try to provide the growth, then we're having special interest groups that try to battle that for their own special purpose. And when you look at the Dave Lyle Boulevard I-77 corridor, that's a natural for economic growth. The comment that, well, the Dave Lyle Boulevard Road is not completed to 521 makes no sense to me whatsoever, because it's something that's going to have to be planned for the future, which is what the comprehensive land use proposal is, to point out areas that have that potential. And with SIB, if you know anything about state government, 3 years from now, all of a sudden, that pot of gold could be there. You never know. But if we're going to focus on areas that we can grow economically when we have so few areas that allow for that, this is a natural. And I see it from the perspective of not only common sense, but serving on the I-77 Alliance, talking to the Economic Development Director for York County that's for it, talking to the I-77 Economic Development Director that sees the logic, talking to Commerce that sees the logic. I don't see anything but logic for it. I know this one developer that this road extension was talked about 20 years ago. 20 years ago. This one developer that bought some land out there based on the future forecast for the area had nothing to do with this Dave Lyle Boulevard proposal. So if we're going to do our job for the citizens as a whole of York County and do what's best for economic development, which is the substance of how we buy our houses and how we live and have a quality of life, I don't see how in the world you could not support this, especially when it appears you're okay with the Clover area, which does not have that growth potential like this already does. So it's not consistencies either. So there's special interest groups being involved, there's inconsistencies of points, there's points made to fit the argument instead of fitting common sense. Sometimes I about have it up here with some of this stuff. But that being said, question on the motion.
One more comment.
Yes, sir.
We need to move.
Mr. Williams.
This vote is about the comprehensive land plan that we've talked about for a while as helping be a growth management tool. We've had a comprehensive land plan committee that's worked diligently on that. I'd like to thank them and the staff for all the time that they've put into this. We've just talked about one issue tonight, but we certainly are very appreciative of everything you've done and look forward to this document doing what we anticipate it doing.
And I think a group that spent many, many months that were appointed citizens to do this, and, you know, experts in the field, a lot of people, and then have the planning commission that's essentially a newborn group. In one meeting, all of a sudden, no better than these citizens that spent all these months studying this is beyond me.
I feel like I do need to make sure that I clarify this.
I'll come to you after I get Mr. Henderson. I saw his hand first.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make a special notation to the fact that I'm fairly sympathetic toward the Dave Lyle Boulevard area as well as the Clover area. And I'd like to reiterate the fact that District 2 is a very, very unique district, as we all know. And especially in regards to a gateway coming into York County, you're talking about four. You're talking about Highway 321 going into Gaston County, back into South Carolina, down into the Clover area. So that would be good for York County as well. And then, but also, let me reiterate the fact that New Hope Road, Pole Branch, and Highway 49, there's 4 gateways coming in to York County that is just primed for economic activity if it's handled and managed correctly. I hope that we will all recognize that District 2 is definitely a jewel of the county. Please, please consider that.
Ms. Cox, and we'll wrap it up.
I just want to make very clear what I'm voting for tonight. We obviously have to move forward with a comprehensive plan, and we're at first reading. We've got public hearing next, and I will be voting to move this forward tonight, but I am asking for council to step back and take a look and be objective about this. We've spent a lot of different things tonight up here, but we know that studies were done by folks who intend to put 3,000 homes in the area, and that's the impetus for this project. We've just talked about how homes don't pay for themselves, or so we think. Hopefully we'll have an answer to that when we hear from our economic development director next time we sit down to talk through this. We've heard from council, and I appreciate Bump being open and honest. We're not going to put any money in this. We can't afford to put it. The county can't. How in the world are we going to prove this if we don't have a way to help the folks, should the funding come from the state to do the backside of it? I just wanted to make sure that my vote is clear tonight, that I am moving because we need to move forward with a comprehensive plan and take the first reading. But I sincerely hope, and I know that this council cares about the people in this district. I think that we will hear from them. This is certainly their opportunity to come out and speak, is that the folks in District 5 do want good growth. But we need to learn from the lessons of our past, which is not so distant, and we are still struggling with. We need to learn from that before we launch into this. And I'm pleading with you to please consider and keep your mind open on this.
Well, I certainly agree with that statement. They need to learn. Question on the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, council to consider first reading of an ordinance to amend the code of the County of York, Chapter 154, entitled Subdivision Code, Section 154030, Preliminary Plat Application and Supporting Data, subsections B2L, B2M, and B5H, Section 154.035, Final Plat Application and Supporting Data Requirements, subsections B13 and B23, Chapter 155, entitled Zoning Code, Section 155.255, Abandoned Cemeteries Overlay Purpose, Section 155.256B, Abandoned Cemeteries Overlay Administration, Section 155.594, Application for Zoning Compliance, subsections B45, B46, and B47, in order to require verification during the review and approval process of preliminary plats of subdivision, final plats of subdivision, and commercial site plans that a property does not contain abandoned cemeteries on the official list developed by the York County Cultural and Heritage Commission through the Historic Survey of York County, establish a minimum 10-foot undisturbed buffer around the perimeter of any known abandoned cemeteries as part of preliminary plats of subdivision, final plats of subdivision, and commercial site plans review and approval, require public pedestrian access to known abandoned cemeteries, amend the requirements for the keeping of the official list of abandoned cemeteries, provide case numbers and conditions of approval of rezonings, special exemptions and variances on preliminary plats of subdivision, final plats of subdivision and commercial site plans, to provide for a public hearing and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Whew. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Discussion. Audra, you want to give any comments? Okay. Mr. Henderson.
I would like to just mention, thank you, Ms. Miller. That was rather long.
Got that right.
But that was a good thing, because this was needed and has been needed for a long time, and this will ensure that things are handled correctly from this, after this has gone through a third reading.
Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, council to consider first reading of an ordinance to amend the code of the County of York, Chapter 155, entitled Zoning Code, Sections 155.009, General provisions, definitions, 155.010. General provisions, permitted uses and special exceptions, 155.126. Business Development District, permitted uses, subsection E, 155.146. Business Development 3 District General, permitted uses, subsection N, 155.161. Industrial Development District, permitted uses, 155.191. Urban Development District, permitted uses in order to define brewery, pub, and tap room. Add breweries and accessory tap rooms as a permitted use within the ID and UD zoning districts. Ensure that breweries with accessory tap rooms will not have an adverse impact on surrounding properties. Replace the term microbreweries with brewpubs within the BD1, BD3, and UD zoning districts to provide for a public hearing and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Council to consider first reading of an ordinance to amend the Code of the County of York, Chapter 155, entitled Zoning Code, Sections 155.497, Public Service Uses, 155.571, Initiation of Amendment, Section or Subsection F, Section 155.574, Public Hearing and Notice thereof, subsection C, Section 155.592, Appeals, Hearing, and Notice, subsections F, 1, and G, in order to add public notice requirements for public service uses, to allow for the Planning and Development Services Department to establish written policies related to additional public notice requirements for public service uses, rezonings, variances, and special exceptions, to clarify the notice requirements for rezonings, variances, special exceptions, and administrative appeals, to require substantial compliance with notice requirements, to provide for a public hearing, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
And a second. Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Next item. Council to consider first reading of an ordinance to amend the Code of the County of York, Chapter 155, entitled Zoning Code, Sections 155.009, General Provisions, Definitions, 155.022, Agricultural Conservation District, Special Exceptions, subsection A, 155.037, Agricultural Conservation 1 District, Special Exceptions, subsection A, 155.047, Rural Development District, Special Exceptions, subsection A, 155.062, Rural Development 1 District, Special Exceptions, subsection A, 155.077, Residential Conservation 1 District, Special Exception, subsection A, 155.092, Residential Conservation 2 District, Special Exception, subsection A, 155.102, Residential Development 1 District, Special Exceptions, subsection A, 155.112, Residential Development 2 District, Special Exceptions, subsection A, 155.147, Business Development 3 District, Special Exceptions, subsections A and B, 155.162, Industrial Development District, Special Exceptions, subsection A, 155.177, Light Industrial District, Special Exceptions, subsection A, 155.192, Urban Development District, Special Exceptions, subsection A, and 155.446, Parking, Off-Street, and Loading, in order to provide for definitions of parking and storage of certain vehicles in the AGC, RUD, RUD1, RC1, RC2, RD1, RD2, and UD zoning districts, amend the requirements for parking and storage of certain vehicles, to apply parking and storage of certain vehicles to AGC 1, to require applicants for special exceptions to submit conceptual plans rather than site plans for hearings before the Zoning Board of Appeals within the AGC, AGC 1, RUD, RUD1, RC1, RC2, RD1, RD2, BD3, ID, LI, and UD zoning districts, to require applicants for special exceptions to submit site plans and building plans if necessary after receiving approval from the Zoning Board of Appeals within the AGC, AGC 1, RUD, RUD1, RC1, RC2, RD1, RD2, BD3, ID, LI, and UD zoning districts to provide for a public hearing, I guess that's supposed to say. After reading all that, I got to have a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, council to consider first reading of an ordinance to amend the code of the County of York, Chapter 156, temporary dwelling permits in order to define temporary emergency hardship, to define the conditions an applicant must meet to receive a temporary emergency dwelling permit, to amend required application items, to amend permit term, revocation, and expiration, to temporarily allow parking of recreational vehicles on the property after the permit expires, to provide a penalty provision, and to provide for a public hearing, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Yes, sir, Mr. Williams.
We talked about this substantially reduces the emergency dwelling permit, and I really don't have a problem with that. In fact, I think we put it in when the economy was bad. I think it might have outlived its usefulness. And I know the problems that we've had with the seriously reduced timeframes. These were probably what invoked us to do it in the first time is neighbors would call on somebody that was in a hardship, and then we had to have an ordinance to do that. The timeframes that have here would probably be covered by that same process. I'm just wondering if we wouldn't be better off eliminating it altogether.
You saying eliminate the temporary dwelling permit
Yes.
process?
Any comment on that, Audra?
From the staff perspective, we're fine with eliminating it. The reason why we kept it was this was a council ordinance, and we just wanted to tighten it up and have it apply to true emergencies to continue to fulfill what council had done in years past. But staff doesn't have an objection if it goes away.
Mr. Henderson.
Yeah, I've heard of too many horror stories when it comes to this because, I mean, I think that if at all possible, we should always give the citizen the benefit of the doubt. And when somebody is out there, they don't know, staff and we do not know what some of these people have to deal with as far as having to stay in a mobile home, I mean, some type of miniature trailer or whatever it may be. You hear of all these situations where people get ran out of a place that it's the only place they can afford. It's the only place that they can deal with for a period of time. And they're out and away. They're in the middle of almost in the middle of the woods. I mean, they're just not making bombs like Ted Kaczynski. I mean, it's just they but what's his name? Unabomber.
You helped him out.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that guy, we don't have. I mean, that's not what we're trying to protect or look out for or try to prevent. We're just. I feel like we're being too intrusive, and we've carried this thing a little bit too far. So I think we should give the citizen the benefit of the doubt, especially when they're not out there, causing a major problem for their neighbors. I think sometimes we tend to forget what it means. We're so used to our own lives and having all the things that we have, and we tend to forget sometimes hardships of others. So I think we should give them the benefit of the doubt and back off of this. That's my opinion.
Mr. Roddy.
This is not to just do away with it. I think this was just to lighten up some things. I think Chad kind of just said he would do away with it, but this is not to do away with it. This will still keep it in place.
I'd rather tighten it up and do
So
away
in
with it.
clarification, were you commenting per his killing it completely, or you didn't like the tightening it up?
Well, to my understanding, okay, maybe I misunderstood, but are we making it harder for these people or easy for them?
Well, it makes a smaller window, so it's a little harder.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying. I do not want that.
Okay. Mr. Roddy. Okay, Mrs. Winkle.
I appreciate that we've had some people who abuse the system, and I would not want to take away the ability for us to grant emergency dwelling, but I do appreciate staff's concerns, and so I support tightening it up some. But I think we need a mechanism to be able to help these people out in true emergencies.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
One of the things that really makes, and I've asked for this before, and I guess I'll just have to draft my own motion and let it die if it doesn't have support, but it would help to know if this is staff coming up with this and their recommendation, that means a difference to me then, and I would like to know of all of these things. When they come up, typically what you have when you're considering any action item, if there's support for it, who's brought it, and who's the one who asked for it to be put on the agenda. I assume it was staff that did this one.
Yes, I don't know if council remembers, but it came before you about a month or 2 months ago and said we were having a problem with this ordinance. Specifically, people were not moving out of the trailer after the time expired. I don't have the authority under the code, nor do I want it to just waive requirements. When it expires, it expires. So I have to take people into court. I just took someone into magistrate's court and said, I got to fine you. You need to get out of this facility. So the reason the staff is recommending this is I think a year is too long. People become settled. They view it as a permanent situation. They don't think it's serious. In fact, we've had people tell us that. We didn't think you were serious when you said it was only good for 6 months in my 1 6-month extension. So I believe with 90 days, it addresses a true hardship. Your house was destroyed or there was a fire. You need something short-term to allow you to get back on your feet and find a permanent housing situation. But having people live in RVs on a permanent basis basically undercuts the purpose of the code and having a building code for this county.
But they're on their private property.
They are on their private property.
Anybody else? Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no.
No.
Council to consider first reading of an ordinance to amend the code of the County of York, Chapter 155, Sections 155-385, 155-387, 155-388, 155-389, and 155-390, in order to amend and update the Transportation Corridor Preservation Overlay Ordinance for the purpose of removing references to the 2003 Pennies for Progress projects, replacing specific Pennies Program references with the Capital Project Sales and Use Tax Program, and removing completed roadway projects from the list of roads included in the Transportation Preservation Corridor, to provide for a public hearing and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Yep, it had to end this way, I assume. Council to consider first reading by title only an ordinance to amend the code of the County of York, Chapter 31, entitled County Policies, Section 31.01, Rates, Fees, and Charges for Zoning Appeals, Applications for Variances, Rezoning Requests, Permits, Inspections, Plan Reviews, and other applications, procedures, and services rendered by the York County Planning and Development Department by the York County Engineering Department, subsection A, Chapter 150, entitled Building Regulations, Section 150.21, Extra Inspections Fee, in order to delete duplicate building and codes re-inspection fees, change subdivision reviews to subdivision construction plans, and change the fees for subdivision construction plans and preliminary plats to address increased administration costs, to increase the subdivision variance and final plat application fees, to increase the permit, building and codes fees, to increase the review and re-review stormwater fees, to add a fee for review of amended subdivision construction plans, delete the subdivision ordinance fee, add a subdivision code administrative appeal fee, to provide for administration of the previously approved subdivision code administrative appeal process, increase the administrative appeal, public service use application, rezoning special exception application, and zoning variance application fees due to increased cost related to additional public notice requirements and administration, delete the zoning ordinance fee, delete the extra inspection fees that conflict with the fee table and with prior ordinances, and to provide for a public hearing and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, Finance and Operations Committee from Chairman Michael Johnson.
Tonight at the Finance and Operations Committee, we considered applications for service and approved Alex Hafley for the Zoning Board of Appeals, Michael Schoenfeld for the York County Board of Disabilities and Special Needs, David Williams for the York County Economic Development Board, Creighton Hayes for the Hospitality Tax Committee, Donna Varelli for the Bethel Fire Tax Board, Omar Casso for the Board of Rural Fire Control, and we approved 2 people out of committee so that the entire council can decide. We voted out William Hagner and Joel Wood for the York County Natural Gas Board.
Comments, questions? I have one. The third person that was there, why was he removed?
My understanding is he was not deferred on. Oh, I apologize. We deferred the Bethel Fire Tax Board. I apologize. I wrote that down incorrectly.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
When I reviewed the notes, it appeared that at the meeting before last, the finance, and Robert and Bruce can say, because I wasn't able to make that meeting, that they deferred, but they only deferred as to Billy Hagner and Joel Wood, not as to the third candidates. Therefore, he was no longer an option to be considered tonight.
And I was there, so Bruce and I, there were 3 candidates, there were 2 of us on the committee. Bruce wanted one candidate, I recommended the other candidate, we couldn't come to an agreement.
And that was the 2 under discussion?
Yes, sir.
So I may, in fairness of vetting for the other person, although I'm sure I probably favor one of the 2 y'all favor, but if it gets down to that person not being considered, by the will of the full council, I wonder about the other guy maybe fitting more of the argument. Never mind, I'll just bring up I'll maybe nominate him just to have a focus of all 3, since that's been a diligent discussion. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
May
Yes,
I
sir.
add?
Mr. Henderson's also on the committee.
Also, please, if whatever happens here, take very close look and consideration to these applications, because, again, you may be surprised at the qualifications of both. And maybe, I don't know how we're talking about this third person, but as far as I'm concerned, it was down to 2. But if those applications really be looked at in fine-tuned detail, please.
Thank you, sir. That being said, now it's council member new non-agenda comments. Anybody have any comments? Yes, Ms. Cox.
I just want to follow up on one other thing. Previously, I would hope that council, and I appreciate council moving forward with the issue of the conflict issue, I would hope that that applies to council members as well, and would like to see that extended to us when we're debating an issue. I would also like for council to consider, when we're doing the agenda, for there to be a statement. If it's coming from staff and it's originating from staff as a recommended agenda item, then I would like it to say that and who's recommending. If it's an actual council member, then I think it would be appropriate for the council member and whoever seconded it to put it on the agenda, for that to be on the agenda as well. That would help with directing questions.
And that's kind of a point we've been kind of talking about. And I just, point of clarification, I don't want to debate it because I'll be the first to say non-debatable, but Mr. Williams and I had a little discussion about that. Mr. Kendrick clarified that if something's on the agenda, either me or Bill can kill it, but then if either one of us kill it, the next meeting, it can be put back on there by, I said 2 council members, Mr. Williams said 3 council members, and
It's in the code.
Mr. Kendry was going to clear, because I hadn't looked it up.
It's in the code.
Okay.
It's in the code.
So whether it's 2 or 3 that can bring it back.
It is in the code, and I will email it to you tomorrow
Okay,
morning.
so he hadn't looked at it either.
It's 3.
There you go.
It's 3.
But just clarification on that.
When we wrote it.
Any other, well, if nobody else has any comments, just a reminder, and Mr. Shanahan's been copying us all these town and cities resolutions for requesting that we go to 4-year terms for their various reasons. So that'll be on the agenda for the next meeting. So, yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you bringing that up. I would like, for timing purposes, if it were to pass, we would need to have that question to the voter and registration board by August 15th.
Okay. So we have a timeline to go by. I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm so used to running for 2 years. I don't really, it doesn't matter to me. But when you have all these governing bodies requesting that, I think we ought to respect them and provide attention to it. If there's no further comments, do we have a motion on executive session?
Yes, sir. I move we go into executive session, discuss the personnel matter, discuss the department head survey results, discuss proposed contractual matter, and to receive legal advice.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We'll be back at 5 to 9.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.